morning again, everyone. Wanted to give you a couple of updates this morning. Yesterday we assembled here and I went through what I would summarize as 6 simple truths about the shutdown. I started with the background, a review of how we got to where we are, and then talked with you about the Democrats' counter-proposal and some of the absurd things that they've been demanding to reopen the government. And then I gave you an update on the current status. We did some questions. Well, sadly, that status has not changed. As you know, last night, the Senate Democrats, the same group, voted again to keep the government closed. So that was their 5th vote to shut the government down on the American people. It is regrettable and sad, and real pain is being felt by real people because of these political shenanigans. So today, instead of the 6 simple truths, I'm going to give you 5 key facts, okay? And then we'll do some questions. I'll be more brief today. I do think it is incumbent upon us to mark the tragic anniversary of October 7. And I'll just say just a very brief word about that. There's a lot that could be said. But there are protests right now around the country and around the world against Israel. And it makes no sense. We have to remember what October 7th marks. It was a massacre. You had 1,200 people that were murdered, many of them tortured and raped. I mean, just the most heinous crimes. Bloodthirsty Hamas terrorists went into villages of Jewish people in Israel and murdered babies and put them in ovens. It's unspeakable, and I won't go into the gross detail of what happened, but it was just terribly, terribly tragic. And then, of course, they kidnapped 250 people. It was the darkest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. And these are objective facts, and right now there are people protesting against Israel for fighting a war to defend their people and their homeland. And I would just say this very brief. I was on a radio interview this morning at WABC in New York. One of my friends there is Sid Rosenberg, and he is the host of that program, and he is himself Jewish. And we were talking about this, and we were talking about the good versus evil thing, and he said a lot of Jewish people today are dejected because they see these protests around the globe and against the wrong side. And I just said to Sid, and I'll read it to you, I brought my Bible in here this morning. I said, Sid, I'm always comforted by this passage in the Psalms, the Old Testament, the Christian Old Testament, but this is the Psalm of the Jewish people, the Psalm of David, Psalm 37. And it says, commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will do this. I'll read it to you. Trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will do this. He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, the justice of your cause like the noonday sun. It says, be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when men succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. I told my friend Sid on the radio, and he was comforted by it, and I think others will be as well. We're all comforted by this. I know that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is fully in control. We'll let that rest there. Let me talk about the shutdown here real quick, and I promised you just 5 fast facts, 5 key facts, okay? I'm going to start with Leader Schumer's record because he is leading the opposition, and he is the one telling the Democrats to keep the government shut down. Chuck Schumer has been in Congress for 44 years. He was first elected to the House in 1981. Just for reference, I was 9 years old. I was in the 3rd grade when Chuck Schumer came here to Congress. Throughout his entire career, he has been very, very consistent about the necessity of keeping the government open until just now. In fact, I want to read to you an excerpt from 7 months ago, his floor speech on March 13th, 2025. This is Senator Chuck Schumer in March of this year. Quote, on the Senate floor, while the CR bill is very bad, the potential for a shutdown has consequences for America that are much, much worse. I believe it is my job to make the best choice for the country to minimize the harms of the American people. Therefore, I will vote to keep the government open and not shut it down, unquote. Now, what was Chuck Schumer talking about? The exact same bill that is on the floor today. That's what he himself said. And he did vote to keep the government open. And then, during an interview with Jake Tapper on CNN following that vote, on March 14th of this year, he said, quote, I'm proud I did it. I know I did the right thing, unquote. That is Chuck Schumer himself. Today's the exact same scenario. It is the exact same vote. It is the exact same spending levels. And he has no reason whatsoever to do anything different, except for the politics. So that's fact number two. Fact number one was Schumer's record. Fact number two is his calculation today. It is purely about politics. He is recognizing the reality of the political winds changing in the state of New York. As I mentioned yesterday, they are likely to elect a Marxist to be the mayor of New York City, and Chuck Schumer is terrified by that. He's been in Congress a long time, and he is not the flavor of the day. He's not far enough left for the Marxist, and he knows he's going to get a challenge from his left flank. So he has to show a fight against President Trump, no matter how ridiculous it is, no matter how distracting it may be to the actual issues of the day. He's got to do that. Democrats have been in the political wilderness since last year's election. I got a couple of numbers for you here. Just over a week ago, Quinnipiac released the latest poll, the lowest favorability rating for the Democrat Party ever recorded. They're at about 30%. 30% favorability. Democrats have hit historic lows in poll after poll since the beginning of this year. Wall Street Journal poll, CNBC poll, the Pew survey, et cetera, et cetera. You've all seen it. Many of you reported on it, or have reported on it, and that is a fact that is inescapable. Third fast fact this morning, the Democrats' record on the CRs. You know about Chuck Schumer's record, but they've all done it. Democrats and Republicans have worked together to pass 13 CRs to keep the government open under the Biden administration in the previous four-year term. Democrats supported every CR close to unanimously in the House and the Senate. In fact, their average is 99%. 99% of the Democrats who are voting no right now voted yes 13 times on the almost exact same, word for word, very simple CRs to keep the government open. But they won't do it now. The fourth fast fact this morning is the actual cost of the Democrats' CR counterproposal. I showed you all the graphics and all the evidence, and it's still there on my website at speaker.gov. You can go and see. The Democrats' counterproposal, what they're demanding to reopen the government and get it working for the American people again, would result in nearly $200 billion being spent on health care services for illegal immigrants and other non-citizens. It's enough to fund the entire children's health insurance program, $200 billion. And that's just part of the $1.5 trillion in new spending that they want to hoist upon the American people for big liberal wish lists in the middle of a very simple 7-week stopgap funding measure to keep the lights on. Fifth fast fact, and I'll take your questions, the cost of the government shutdowns for real people. So this results in crippling economic losses right now. These are the latest numbers. We've been assembling these, and I'm sure many of you all have been reporting on it. Each week the shutdown continues, it will wipe out an estimated $15 billion in our gross domestic product in our country. A month-long shutdown would mean not just 750,000 federal civilian employees furloughed right now, but an additional 43,000 more unemployed Americans across the economy, because that is the effect, the ripple effect that it has in the private sector. You could go state by state, and we could have charts and graphs this morning and show you what it's going to mean to every state, but what the shutdown means in the state of New York, for example, that's Chuck Schumer's state. The impact there is a decline of $1.2 billion per month in GDP. That is the pain that is being wrought. And I, again, have to mention that when you shut down, as they have, women, infants, and children nutrition programs, veterans health services, the disabled, the elderly who receive health care at home, all these programs are now being shuttered because the funding streams have stopped. We have troops, we have Border Patrol agents, TSA agents that are all serving, protecting all of us, protecting the country without pay right now. Real hardships for real families, and it cannot drag on any longer. We are pleading with the Democrats in the Senate to do the right thing. The Republicans are united 100%, and we have proven it with our votes. The President, the Republicans in the Senate, and of course the Republicans in the House have done the right thing. We have all advocated to keep the government open. We have all voted repeatedly over and over to keep the government open. And it comes down to the necessity of 60 votes in the Senate. We only have 53 Republicans, and so we have to have a handful of Democrats who will wake up and do the right thing and stop inflicting pain on the American people so that they can score political points. I'll take your questions. Yes, ma'am. Hey.
I would like to know, do you think all those federal employees will receive the back pay if they keep their job? And then also, we saw in the Democrats' CR almost $500 million for PBS and NPR, $174,000 in death benefits to those 3 Democrat lawmakers' families who recently passed away, $437 million for the European Bank. Could you also comment on those 3 provisions too?
Yes, I mentioned in the counterproposal, the CR for the Democrats presented, it's $1.5 trillion. And if you go through it, and we have, and you analyze what it is they're requesting, it's a list of absurd priorities. They know that we could never do that and would never do it because it's wrong. For example, they want to give $500 million back to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. In the One Big Beautiful Bill, we eliminated that line. We don't believe that taxpayers should be funding biased news organizations and subsidizing their operations. That might have made sense 30 or 40 years ago, but you don't need that service anymore. Look how many media outlets are present in the room this morning. Media and information is ubiquitous. It's 24/7. It's live all the time, and it's on the internet. We don't need taxpayers funding that, and they were all left-leaning, biased organizations. We're not doing that again. And some of these other priorities that you mentioned, there are many that we could list that are just outrageous. It has nothing to do with the current proposal to keep the government in operation for 7 more weeks so that we continue the appropriations process. We're trying to fund the government, and you need Republicans and Democrats to work together to get that done. With regard to whether the furloughed civilian employees of the federal government will receive back pay, it is true that in previous shutdowns, many or most of them have been paid for the time that they were furloughed. But there is new legal analysis. I don't know the details. I just saw a headline this morning. I'm not read in on it, and I haven't spoken to the White House about it. But there are some legal analysts who are saying that that may not be appropriate or necessary in terms of the law requiring that back pay be provided. So I'm sure that'll be there will be a lot of discussion about that. But there are legal analysts who think that that is not something that government should do. That, if that is true, that should turn up the urgency and the necessity of the Democrats doing the right thing here. Even more pain, more than I just listed for more people. So we've got to figure it out. Back row, yes, sir.
Speaker, you've spoken repeatedly since the shutdown began about the impact on FEMA, the National Flood Insurance Program. Talk about how you're from a hurricane state. If this is a priority for you, why not bring the House back and vote on a reauthorization for NFIP or for WIC or troops pay or all those things for that matter?
Well, there's a lot of issues that we need to address, and we work on flood insurance, the flood insurance program all the time, those of us in hurricane states. But the work of the House has been done, and we have to get the Senate to reopen the government so that we can come back and handle all of these very important end-of-the-year issues. There's a lot of things on the table. FEMA has sufficient resources right now to do that. We do have to extend the flood insurance program, annually, effectively, to make sure that it's there, but we'll do that. We'll do it in due course. There's a lot of end-of-year issues that are being conflated with this very simple issue of keeping the government open. And that is the first and most immediate priority, and we must use every leverage point we have to force the Democrats to do that. And that's why we're handling the schedule the way we are. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thanks, sir. You talked about Leader Schumer's record with regard to continuing resolutions. Your record, you voted against continuing resolutions in the past, including when Speaker McCarthy was the Speaker. How do you explain your stance now versus yours previously?
Yeah, different circumstances, different times. When we did CRs in the past, you had leverage points of things that when the Democrats were trying to put their partisan priorities in, we were trying to use whatever leverage we had in the minority to take them out. Very important distinction right now. We did not put in Republican priorities in the clean CR. I could have put some of our priorities or poison pills or things that Democrats had done in the past to us. We didn't. And that's why there's nothing to negotiate right now. People say, why aren't you negotiating? I don't have anything to offer. I can't go to a clean CR and say, let me pull off the Republican priority and make it more palatable for you, because we didn't add that in. It's simply a status quo continuance. One of the things we objected to back then was these were Biden-level policies and spending. I still object to that. But what I'm trying to do is keep the government open so that we can readjust those things. And as I gave you the long background yesterday, the summary of how we got to where we are, the appropriations process is working again. And we're going to be able to reprioritize federal spending, but we have to allow the time for that to continue, and we need 7 more weeks. But every day that they keep the government open, it gives us less time to finish the job.
I'm talking about when McCarthy was the speaker and you guys had a majority in 2023.
Yeah, well, we had divided government as well, right? The Democrats were, Chuck Schumer was over here negotiating in the Senate, and that's what's so ironic about it. When we were in the Oval Office, Chuck Schumer looked the president in the eyes and said, I've always been very fair. I've always allowed the Republicans their priorities. And I just looked at him like, oh, what? I'm sitting right here. I was the guy you were negotiating with. I called him at the 11th hour, I remember very vividly, and asked him not to put in a terrible poison pill that was a big Democrat priority that is outrageous to the conservatives. And he said, yeah, I'm sorry, Speaker, can't help you, and literally hung up on me, you know. So now he wants me to be a fair broker. I have been. I gave him much more grace than he ever deserved. Yes, sir. Jake, sorry.
As a matter of principle, on the back pay, I mean, understanding that there are people who have opinions about everything and analysis about everything, do you believe as a matter of principle that furloughed workers should receive back pay?
Yeah, I hope that the furloughed workers receive back pay, of course. We have some extraordinary Americans who serve the federal government, and they serve valiantly, and they work hard, and they serve in these various agencies doing really important work. I can tell you the president believes that as well. He and I have talked about this personally. He doesn't want people to go without pay, and that's why he pleaded with Chuck Schumer to do the right thing and vote to keep the government open. We don't want this to happen. The key point, the important point to remember here is this can stop right now. They'll get another opportunity to change course and open the government. And then we'll have all these policy debates, as we always do. This, again, is a deliberative body. We've got 535 individuals serving here between the Senate and the House. We've got to have the time to do all the deliberation, but you got to have the lights on to do it, and that's the whole point. Yes, sir.
Some of your own members have expressed concern about the expiration of the ESA tax credits. Marjorie Taylor Greene has been the latest one. There are concerns that when they expire, premiums for millions of Americans would skyrocket. Why not begin negotiations on that issue right now?
Because the government is closed, and as I mentioned, that's a December 31 issue. There are lots of conversations and deliberations and discussions right now, even bipartisan amongst members, about necessary changes that would have to be made, pretty dramatic changes, to even have that considered on the floor. But look, I'm not going to forecast the outcome of that. The whole point is you keep the government open, and then we have those discussions. We were always planning to have those discussions in the month of October. That's how the process works. And this is a very complicated issue. It's not a simple one. And you have, as I mentioned, there's probably 400 different ideas on the table of how to modify, change, or improve that if it is indeed going to be extended. And there's lots of concern all the way around. But there's no way that if 4 of us can go in a room and just snap our fingers and say, oh, here's the solution, let's get it done. We haven't had time to do that. And so we will. But we have to get the lights back on and get everybody here working again in their committees, through their processes, and on the floor in order to have fruitful conversations about that. So we'll hope that we'll do it. Yes, sir.
Congresswoman Greene specifically said that Republicans do not have a plan to deal with health care.
Congresswoman Greene does not serve on the committees of jurisdiction that deal with those specialized issues, and she's probably not read in on some of that. Because they've still been sort of in their silos of the people who specialize in those issues. When we get the conference back and when everybody's back together, we'll go through a lot of that. I mean, I've spoken personally to a number of members in the last 3 days, Republicans, from the most conservative member to the more moderate member, with their various ideas on that. There's a lot of work that's been done on that. It's implied as if this has been some sort of ignored issue. It's not that at all. Okay, but everybody's entitled to their opinion. I mean, not everyone knows everything. Congress is a very complex organization, operation, institution with lots of things going on in lots of different areas of committees of jurisdiction. And no one member has read in on everything that happens, because that would be an impossible amount of information.
Last question.
Yeah, let me go front. Yes, sir.
President Trump yesterday expressed a willingness to work with Democrats on the health care issue. You say that's not going to happen so long as the government is shut down. Does that change your calculus that the president says that he wants to see some kind of a negotiation or discussion on this, even if the government is shut down?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw his truth after that was reported, but he made very clear that, yes, he's happy to sit down and talk with Democrats about health care or anything as soon as they reopen the government. And we are 100% consistent and united on that. I spoke to the president at length yesterday about that very thing. And yes, he wants to solve problems. The president is a deal maker. He likes to figure these things out and works towards solutions. And that's why he's a bold, strong leader that America needs right now. I'm excited to work with him on that. I have the exact same opinion and position. But again, none of this can happen until the Democrats stop inflicting pain on the American people and turn the lights back on in Congress and get everybody back to work. I certainly pray and hope that they will do that and they don't drag this on for political purposes. Thank you all so much.
Mr. Speaker, when will you swear in Ms. Grijalva?